Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have Rachel. Rachel has a bomb drop of March 16th, 2022 and a date of marriage of 2003. She has a boomerang who is a low energy wallower. She says, my story is of a runaway husband who ran away in the middle of the night. I didn't have a plan of return. And that's reference to I just spoke in my last video about planning for returns. She says, I'm just trying to heal and stand. My husband has been home for about a year and a half. And so it sounds like he was gone a year and a half and he's been home for about a year and a half, something like that. We're in separate rooms and we don't speak face to face, and he won't ever look at me. He won't look me in the eye. Several months ago, I asked him in a text, what are we doing? He said he was home to help me financially, which is nice, but not necessary. I've asked if he plans on moving out again, and he told me no, and asked if he should. He is severely depressed. I assume there have been other women, since that is typical and I'm realistic. I'm just living my separate life, vacations and concerts with friends. Is this stasis normal? He told me he just wants to be left alone. Okay, so the first question I have is, you are assuming that there have been other women, since that's typical and you're realistic. Are you assuming that there are other women now that he's home? Or are you assuming that beforehand? Or are you assuming that both? And what rules and boundaries do you want? The stasis is normal. But what do you want? And that's what we need to look at. There's standing. And standing is great, and you can choose to stand, and you can do whatever you want for your stand. But what sort of boundaries do you think there should be in a marriage and in a relationship? What do you think you are teaching him? Set aside the depression idea, because sure, he's depressed. But even when someone is depressed, we still have to follow the rules of society. We still have to follow the laws. In other words, if you go out there and break the law, you get arrested. You go to jail. You go to court. Okay? So, it's not an excuse. It's not legal insanity. It might be a mental illness, but mental illness does not take it all the way to legal insanity. So he doesn't get a pass because he's depressed. So what are your boundaries? And how is it affecting you? How is it affecting your health? If you're okay with living like roommates or living as roommates, really, because you are roommates and that's it right now, and go for that, but make it set up that way so that he knows, hey, we're roommates. We're not spouses right now. So he's not getting away with something. You're not getting away with something. Then set the rules. But what do you want? What's appropriate and what's not? Where are the rules and boundaries within the situation that you are in right now? And if you want a different situation, how would that change? Because if you're allowed to do something now, say, have other relationships. And I know that you're not allowed to, but if that's not part of the boundary because you're accepting it and you'd have to put that out there, how would you change that? If things transition and now you are going to work toward reconnecting, how would that change happen? Toward, okay, now you're not allowed to do this because we are going to start being together again. That might be a more difficult one to overcome because you were allowing something. I'm not sure. It's something to think about. So I want you to think about, what is the level of toxicity? And this is something I think about a lot because I don't know if you have children in the home, but one of the things that is said for children is children are better off in a home if their parents are together, if the household is, of course, happy, but also if if it's not happy, but if it's low conflict. And they are better off if their parents are together then. But they're better off if their parents are not together, if it is a high conflict household. But what constitutes high conflict, and where's the threshold? And I went over this a lot with one of my best friends from college. When her husband and her have now been divorced for a few years, about 5+ years now. But he was an addict, and he's recovering, but it got violent in the end like it often does. And there was a long period where she and a few other friends of ours were very worried. And she said, but it's not usually that way, but they were always waiting for the other shoe to drop. There was one incident. Oh, but it's just one time a year where it seemed almost violent or close to, but not quite. Okay, well, there's that. But then we're thinking violent, but what other levels of toxicity? When we say high conflict, what constitutes high conflict? So let's take that word and replace it with toxicity. And I believe the study that reviewed this was Judith Wallerstein's many years ago. But I don't recall them saying, where's this threshold? So I don't know where the threshold is for that. Where's the threshold of toxicity? You might have to figure that out for yourself, for your own situation. Where's the threshold? When does it become dangerous for you or for your children? But think about yourself. When does it become unhealthy? When is your health right now better if he's not in the home with you, if you are in different locations? So think about it that way, okay? Even if you continue standing, are you better standing from a distance? Okay, think about that. You said that it's not necessary for him to help you out financially. And who knows? Is him being there helping him or enabling him, even if you're not doing the enabling? But is that enabling him to stay within his depression? And thereby elongating this crisis for him? I don't know. The answer may be yes, it may be no. That's not something we may ever know. It's one of those what ifs. But it is something to think about. Because where could he be going? Where would you be going? Mentally and emotionally and on your healing journey. If things were in different places, if you were both in different places. And I'm not saying you should or shouldn't. I just want you to think about the different ways things could be going. Because you can stand from separate houses or from separate domiciles. I mean, one person might be crashing in somebody's basement or an apartment or a motel or their car. But it still might be better for the relationship or for the future of the relationship. And it might be better for their growth and learning, even though they may go through harder times, because sometimes they have to go through that crucible of challenge to get to the other side. And maybe it's too easy right now. And so I want you to think about that. Because this stasis, remember you've said stasis, this limbo. Stasis is where things aren't happening. They're static, unmoving. And is that what you want? Because it means it's just not going anywhere. Stagnant. And it's been 1.5 years, you said. Has it really felt stagnant for that 1.5 years? Sure, we can have things happening underneath the surface where we can't see, but it doesn't sound like that is a very healthy situation for you. And so I want you to think about that. Somebody who's depressed can really hold on to that depression because it feels like there is no way out. And if he is not talking to you, if he is not able to look you in the eye, and it sounds like not able, but I imagine, and I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I'm hoping that he would be willing to if you said something, but I imagine he's not willing to look you in the eye if you went and offered, hey, could I get you some help? Hey, you know what? You need some help. And getting him psychological help, but you've lost the right of wife. And he may not take any offer of help for you, any advice from you, any of that. If you would, oh, bonus. But maybe it's just dude, you need some help on the way out. That sort of thing, as a last resort. And, go to your parents or go to somewhere where you will listen. Because you're not going to listen to me clearly, and I just want you to get some help. I want you to feel better. And I don't want him to take any drastic measures. But you're not his savior. So I don't want you to be giving him a warm bed at night because, hey, at least he's safe. At least he's not on the street, or at least he's not in a homeless shelter. I don't want you doing that. Because that would be you being a rescuer. And you haven't said that's what you're doing. You said you're getting on with your life and all of that. But don't be providing something for him for that reason either. Okay? You're a good person. You take care of your students, and you do everything you can, but he's not one of them. Okay? Focus on you. Focus on the other kids. Focus on those who are right now willing to accept your help. Okay. And stand in the best way that you can stand that is not going to damage you. You can still stand. Stand for you. You can stand for your marriage. But standing is not meant to damage the relationship. And so sometimes it is not meant to be done with the two of you close to each other, even if it brings you close later on. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay? And I will see the rest of you in the next question.